Hello and welcome to Transforming Industries, the podcast focusing on industrial transformation, technology, and what M&A has to do with it. Today with my co-host Sebastián Trolli from Frost & Sullivan.
OEMs, for instance, they are used to sell machinery, basically. That was their main business model for decades. Well, now they are shifting that focus towards a service-oriented business model, right? And for that, to incorporate those capabilities and still creating value and differentiating from their competitors, for sure, they would want to explore some sort of acquisition of small technology companies that allows them to include those remote monitoring capabilities, remote assistance capabilities into their core offerings.
Transforming Industries.
Today we are launching a new series at the podcast, our Industrial Tech Quarterly, which will be co-hosted by Sebastián Trolli. Sebastián was my first guest on the podcast when we started last year, talking about the $1 trillion opportunity of industrial tech. And now, almost a year later, Sebastián and I decided to continue our discussion on industrial tech on a quarterly basis. We will provide you with interesting informations on key players in the market, latest technology trends, market trends, deep dives into specific market segments, and about latest M&A activities in the market. We hope you like this new format, and now let's directly jump into our new episode. Hello, Sebastián. Welcome to Transforming Industries. Or I should say again, welcome to Transforming Industries.
Hi, Tim. How are you doing? I'm really glad to be here today with you in this Transforming Industries podcast series, right? I'm really, really happy to be your co-host at this time.
Exactly.
And I'm so happy to share with your audience and with the industrial communities all the amazing things that we have to, or we have to for discussion today, right? For today's discussion. So really excited about that, and thank you so much again for this opportunity. And Happy New Year!
Yeah, thank you. Same to you as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So why do I say welcome back? Because I think we have to say that you were the first guest I had in the Transforming Industries podcast. So everybody who didn't have the chance, I would suppose, really also to listen again to the first episode. And I think from there we always stayed in contact and exchanged, and from that there gradually came the idea on saying, oh, why don't we do a quarterly update on the whole industrial tech market, about different trends, company news, etc. And so there we are. So it's I think our first quarterly update on that. And yeah, I would say let's start. But before we start, one thing I think that is quite important. Always, if I talk to people on industrial tech, I think there is so many different understandings. So some really think about manufacturing, others really on software side of it. So I think before we really go into the topics, I think it might be good just for the audience to clarify what we going forward understand on industrial tech, right?
Absolutely, Tim, and thank you so much for this opportunity to clarify this concept, because same as the market, it is very broad, right? When someone says industrial technologies, right? What do we mean by that? Yeah, well, but from an industry perspective, first of all, from an industry perspective, and then from a technology perspective, basically, right? From an industry perspective, industrial technologies encompasses all the technologies that are meant to improve manufacturing or discrete processes, and also process industries, right? Not just manufacturing per se or machinery. We can talk about discrete manufacturing processes, machinery, right? Discrete automation systems, but also we have to talk about process industries and process equipment as well, right? And that's from an industry perspective, right? Typically, when you talk about manufacturing, it always associated with discrete manufacturing, but we must not forget the process industry side of the business, right? Yeah. Or the market. And regarding technologies, I would say that when you talk about industrial tech, are all those tools, right? Or technologies or tools that allow you to, nowadays, since the inception of Industry 4.0, that allows you to not just to control the process, to acquire data, to perform some basic analytics calculation, but most importantly, to it's a means for you to, climb up the ladder of the digital transformation journey or digital transformation maturity journey, right? In the 80s, I would say in the 70s, in the 80s, and also in the 90s, industrial technologies were pretty much associated with industrial automation, right? And when I mean by industrial automation, I mean, the traditional Purdue model, the levels 0, 1, and 2, which basically means field instrumentation, safety systems, and control systems as well, right? And also supervisory control and data acquisition, right? 2000s, but I would say by late 90s, early 2000s, all this software that came up to optimize and to manage operations like advanced process control, manufacturing execution systems, right, which comprises level 3 and level 4 of the old Purdue model. People and the industry start talking about, industrial technologies to those software, which in fact is software, basically, right? Of course, it's hosted on a hardware piece, but when you talk about MES, when you talk about even at enterprise level ERP systems, you're talking about industrial software, right? So at the very beginning, you have industrial automation, then industrial software. Of course, it is all comprised within, industrial hardware, right? First of all, it was on-premise, absolutely on-premise data centers on site. Then the advent of cloud computing, hybrid cloud, right? Private and public clouds. And today we are talking about, and this is one of the trends that we will be mentioning during the podcast, during this session, the industrial edge, right? Edge computing, right? Which are the advantages. So now we have industrial automation related to process control, industrial software related to optimize, right, and to manage production. We talk about industrial hardware, but also I don't want to forget industrial platforms. Since the advent of Industry 4.0, 2011, 2012, but most importantly, since 2015, 2016, there was a huge movement around developing industrial platforms, right? Industrial IoT platforms, which was initially focused on connectivity, how to get data, right? Bringing the IoT, Internet of Things concepts to industry. And then it evolved mainly post-pandemic, 2022, 2023, into platforms that were focused more on data management and, of course, AI-powered capabilities, right? So that's a kind of evolution, right? We cannot forget also additive manufacturing, machine vision, which are also industrial practices which uses industrial equipment as well, right? So just to summarize, you have industrial automation, which is process control, industrial software, you have industrial hardware, industrial platforms, additive manufacturing, machine vision, computer vision, right? And all of this comprises the I would say the technology component of the PPT framework, people, process, and technology, that allows you again to develop your organization, develop your enterprise, develop your business within the digital transformation maturity journey, which basically intends to go from manual processes, and through digitalization, digital transformation, and finally reaching digital maturity. The intention, the main goal of this is to have all your business processes, not just your operational processes or production processes, but all your enterprise processes, all your business processes managed by digital solutions, digital applications. So from my perspective, from my point of view, that is a pretty comprehensive definition of what do we mean by industrial technologies from an industrial perspective, or vertical market perspective, and also from a technology perspective. I don't know if you agree with that, Tim, but
fully agree. No, yeah, I think you actually. We covered all the tech stack, right? The entire tech stack for driving industrial transformation. So, but I think it is important to clarify before continuing. Yeah, I would say like let's jump into our topics.
of course.
We maybe for the audience, what we plan to do is basically always to have some basic categories, right, that we want to talk about, like some company news, key highlights of the last quarter, or in this time last couple of months, as we cover broadly 2024 in this first episode, where we talk about some company news, some fairs that we visited, we thought interesting to share. We will have a technology trend category where we talk about laytest technology and market trends. We will always have a deep dive category where you will bring some interesting view on a specific technology that you think is worth mentioning in more detail. And then finally rounding up on some M&A activities that happened in the past and we think are interesting to talk about, right? So
yeah, of course. And let me add this, Tim, if I may, please.
Sure.
As you may see, and as the audience may saw when I was describing the industrial technology space, this is a huge market, a huge space, a huge landscape. So it's impossible, virtually impossible to, touch on every single market segment, market sector, market topic, right? So what we are trying to do from this very first quarterly update onwards is to try to, of course, highlighting the most important things that happen in the main relevant sectors, but also try to not forget those sectors that are probably not that large, not that big, but are still important for the industrial automation and industrial software landscape, right?
Exactly. So now let's jump into the first category on the news and company insights. So maybe let's start with some key events, conferences, fairs, because I know that especially at the end of last year you were quite busy, right? Traveling, having some keynote speeches, attending some conferences. Maybe you want to share a little bit about these conferences and also actually what for 2025 what you think are important fairs or conferences to cover. So yeah, really interested to hear what you have to say.
No, yeah, sure, Tim. Oh, well, and of course, my role as research manager at a market research and advisory firm like Frost & Sullivan allows me or gives me this possibility of traveling to analyst industry events or automation trade fairs, and gives me the opportunity to witness the latest trends, the latest technologies in the space, right? So I would like to particularly highlight three key events. Each of them has its own reason that I was fortunate enough to attend last year. The first of all, in chronological order, right? The first of all is the Siemens Digital Industry Software Realize Live Americas 2024 event. It was held in May in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. This is the one of the largest, if not the largest, analyst industry event / user conference that is held by an industrial software company, the Siemens Digital Industry Software Realize Live event. Mm-hmm. Of course, the main purpose, the main goal of that event is to showcase Siemens' latest developments, Siemens' latest partnerships within the industrial software landscape, right? You are able to attend, keynote speeches by the CEO of the Digital Industries software business unit. You are able to attend keynote speeches also of other C-suite executives like sustainability, like chief product officer, chief technology officer. It's really, 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 really interesting having the opportunity to exchange some words with them then in interviews. So that was one of the main highlights for me attending this year. I was able to witness why Siemens Digital Industry Software is, I would say, no question about it, the number one industrial software vendor, the number one industrial software provider worldwide, right? At that event, there were some highlights, right? For instance, one highlight was PLM, right? Mm-hmm. Product Lifecycle Management Technologies. They highlighted all the advancements on their product, which is Teamcenter, right? Also, one of the key trends or the key topics that were covered during that conference was no-code, low-code applications, something that we will talk about it later, and how Mendix, which is the #1 low-code, no-code application, is helping the manufacturing industry, growing and increasing productivity, right? Also, another very big topic there was the relationship between digital twins and digital thread, and how the digital thread is boosting productivity of more of the design and engineering side of the value chain, of the manufacturing value chain, right? And of course, Siemens showcased their amazing and huge partnership ecosystem, which is comprised by companies like Microsoft, Nvidia, AWS, IBM, SAP, Salesforce, Deloitte, etc., etc., etc. And last but not least, of course, which I think, and we will talk about it a lot today, is how generative AI is impacting every single sector in the industrial software space, not just on the generative AI design capability, which is more related to the design and engineering phase of the manufacturing value chain, but also on the operations side, right, of the value chain. So at that show, I was able to witness from the leading industrial software vendor in the world in terms of revenue and business volume, the latest advancements, right? For instance, their partnership with Sony, developing headsets for generative AI design. It was amazing. So on a separate note, I was able to travel to the IoT, Internet of Things Solutions World Congress 2024, that was held in Barcelona, Spain. Later that May, mid-May was Siemens Realize Live. Late May was the IoT SWC Congress. The main point here, or the main goal for me here, was that I was invited I'm a senior member of the International Society of Automation, which is a non-profit US-based organization that tries to spread knowledge into the industry about the industrial automation practices, standards, etc., etc. And I had the opportunity to deliver a keynote speech there on sustainable automation, right? The race to net zero, how sustainability is transforming into a new industrial business model, the sustainability versus profitability trade-off, transitioning into Industry 5.0, being sustainability one of the key components of Industry 5.0. It was a really, really good 45-minute keynote speech there, and it was a massive event, more than 12,000 attendees and 200 speakers there.
Okay.
And last but not least, and I promise this is the last one, on November, I had the opportunity to attend an industrial AI summit that was held in Houston, Texas, November 2024, by Symphony AI. And here I was invited to, again, deliver a keynote speech, but this time was more from a digital transformation perspective, right? How industrial AI and industrial data ops, another huge topic that we will be talking about it today, are helping organizations, right? Are helping factories, are helping production, operational companies to evolve into the digital transformation maturity framework. So it was amazing to see their latest advancements in industrial data ops, one of the most comprehensive data ops platforms in the market right now, which is Iris Foundry. So I was really fortunate enough to not just to witness all that technology advancements, but also to meet some of the brightest minds in the industry, right? I was fortunate enough to meet with Joe Perino, also in IoT SWC with Jeff Winter. So it was a really, really good, really great year for me in terms of events, right? All the amazing things that I was able to witness, and that not just to witness, but I was able to see how all those advancements are being applied into daily, manufacturing operations, right?
Yeah, sure. Great. So I think this is also some of the experience that will go into the next topics, right? And but for the audience, like as we are now in 2025, what from your perspective are some key events that, if around, people should visit for this year?
No, definitely, and thanks. This is a great service for the industrial technologies community, right? Yeah, I would divide those conferences into two main groups. You have the traditional industrial automation or industrial software trade shows, and then you have the user conferences that are hosted or held or organized by the industrial automation vendors itself, right? So that is very different. And as you know, this better than me, in Germany, you have probably the two biggest or the two largest trade shows worldwide, which is the Hannover Messe. This year, Hannover Messe in Germany will take place March 21st to April 4th, of course, in Hanover. Sorry for the pronunciation, the German
No problem.
pronunciation. And in Nuremberg, you will have November 25th to November 27th, the SPS, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And a good news for the SPS organization is that they will be hosting their very first US event, SPS Atlanta, in Atlanta, Georgia, the US, in September 16th to September 18th. In that particular case, it will be most North American focused, right? But
Okay.
good news, right? We will have also an
exactly.
SPS event overseas, right, in North America.
Yeah, and I can only recommend to attend, as I was attending the SPS in Nuremberg just for many times. So I think they will be setting up something great also in the US. So I think it's always a good event to get the most comprehensive overview on the technology that we are talking about in the market, right?
Yeah, exactly. And as I know that you attended SPS Nuremberg last year, I would like to ask you, probably when I finish with my very quickly
Sure.
with the recap of events, which was your experience there, right?
Yeah.
I would be really interested. I didn't have the opportunity to travel there last year, so I would be more than happy to hear that from you, Tim. And we have also the Connected Worker Manufacturing Summit. And I'm highlighting the Connected Worker Manufacturing Summit because during this session, the augmented connected worker sector is the one that we will be diving deeper, right? And
Exactly.
we have plenty of reasons about that. The Connected Worker Manufacturing Summit will be hosted in Chicago, Illinois, US, in October 13th till October 15th. And then, of course, you have the what I was telling you, the user conferences, user groups that are hosted by the most prominent industrial automation vendors, right? You will have the Siemens Realize Live Americas in Detroit, Michigan, June 2nd to June 5th. Then you have Emerson Exchange Immerse Americas in San Antonio, Texas, May 19th till May 22nd. The Honeywell Users Group, the famous HUG, it will be held also in San Antonio, Texas, between June the 9th and June the 11th. And last but not least, the Rockwell Automation Fair will be hosted in Chicago, Illinois, between November the 17th and November 20th this year. So there are dozens and dozens
Yeah,
and
sure.
dozens of additional trade shows, but I would say from the two groups, the traditional industrial fairs and the user groups, those are probably the most important ones. Oh, I was forgetting Automate, which is the largest trade fair, automation trade fair in the US. It will be hosted in Detroit, Michigan, also May 12th till May 15th.
Okay, great. So I think that gives a comprehensive overview, right, on some key events. Basically, I hope we meet somewhere finally in person on one of those events, right?
That would be one of my main goals for this year. Hopefully to meet you in person.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, we were talking SPS in Nuremberg. Yeah, I think it was a great event. As I said, I think it's always a very comprehensive event, right? Getting that's also why I'm attending there, to get the most comprehensive overview on latest technology trends. And I mean, besides all the technologies, you could see two things for me personally stood out. One is really seeing like how all the mid-size companies, especially in Germany, has a huge base of automation companies, especially family-driven businesses, mid-size businesses. How advanced also these companies are with driving digital solutions. and this is also maybe a contrast to the machinery and equipment industry here in Germany. So I think that's kind of a role model to see how they evolved, especially, and I think with very smart solutions, especially around their core products, right? Knowing they are coming all from the hardware side. So this is more like a general aspect. And then for sure you have all the different technology trends. One of the things that I really found interesting, and I was visiting several booths, for example, like Sony Itrios, is really all the what I call easyfication and appification around visual inspection and machine vision and integrating AI, right? So because this is for me a good showcase of one of a very pragmatic, easy to use AI solution that directly shows impact. So I had some really interesting discussions around that on several booths. So that was one of my personal things. And for sure, like when you're visiting the Siemens Hall, right, having a very comprehensive overview on their end-to-end solutions was really great to see, right? And also really great to see. I think sometimes in Germany we tend to make our progress in digitization tend to underestimate how advanced we are in certain technologies. And I think especially around automation and industrial digital technologies, there are really some interesting and good companies. And I think Siemens is really kind of a role model, right?
Exactly. Completely agree. But don't forget, in Germany, you have a lot of startups. I can mention a few of them, which are really, from Frost & Sullivan perspective, we are following them very, very, very closely, right?
Yeah.
Companies like software-defined automation, companies like HiveMQ, right? Different technologies, different sectors they are targeting, but really, really high growth German companies with the offering product solutions with the latest technologies, kind of disruptive for the markets that they serve. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that's also like the purpose, right, of our quarterly reviews, to highlight also some of those companies and say kind of new hidden champions, put it that way.
Exactly.
But I think now we are already like on the company news, right? Like we say we always want to pick some highlights that we think are like kind of representative or worth mentioning over the last quarter or last couple of months. And I think we already mentioned Siemens a couple of times, right? And if you look at Siemens and the overall automation industry, and you look especially at the second half of last year, I think the whole automation industry is kind of suffering. So like the announcements of financial figures from Siemens and Rockwell has really shown some decrease in the automation business, right? Driven by different purposes. I mean, it's always like kind of a cyclical business. China is not going well for the companies. But I think the highlight, or why I'm mentioning is really the point that, on contrast, the software business, like with Siemens, has significantly increased. And also in this context, Siemens announced that they plan to double to almost 20% of their overall revenue in digital industry. So I think this is a trend or something that we will see, I think, in the upcoming future more and more, that's like originally hardware-driven companies gradually transforming the software share of their business, right?
And that's a trend, Tim, that's a trend that I was fortunate enough to witness when I was a Honeywell employee. Before joining Frost & Sullivan as a industry analyst and a research manager, I worked for Honeywell, the Latin American business, from 2008 till 2020. So 2015, 2016, I was fortunate enough to witness in person how a traditional industrial automation company was transforming their business into an industrial software company. And now what they call themselves enterprise software as a service company. So that's it, that trend, from my perspective, from my viewpoint. Of course, the factory automation business, the process automation business will still be a strong business for these companies like Siemens, Honeywell, Rockwell, Emerson, etc. But the industrial software, the digital business, as you want to name it, has already become the most important business for them in terms of revenue, in terms of year-over-year growth. And just to give you two updates on Siemens Digital Industries software performance, but just for the audience to know, Siemens has four or five different software business groups, right? Being digital industries one of them. You have energy, you have healthcare, etc., etc. And within digital industries, you have factory automation, process automation, software, and services, right? The digital industries software business margin in 2024 increased 15.5% compared the previous year. And the company's digital business segment achieved significant milestones, for instance, with cloud ARR share reaching almost 40%. So those are astonishing numbers from an original industrial automation company that now turned most of their or a large portion of their business into digital business, right?
Yeah. And I think in this context, we also have to see the Altair acquisition, right? This is like a consequent, I think a big move, right? For Siemens. I mean, one of the things is like I said, it's a large acquisition. It's an acquisition in the US, which also I think might be quite smart, looking some of the political and economic situations at the moment. Maybe you want to say also something a little bit about this acquisition, because I think it's a quite smart acquisition. I mean, there was a lot of talk about the price Siemens is going to pay for it, but I think the acquisition itself makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, well, that's a trend that we are seeing in the market, right? That companies that are or that belong to the traditional computer-aided engineering space, right, are being acquired by larger companies, right? Regarding the Siemens or the Altair being acquired by Siemens process or acquisition, I think the value was something around $10.6 or $10.5 billion, right? And for sure, it was a great move, a smart move. In fact, the two largest companies in the CAE space were acquired last year, being ANSYS one of them. We'll talk about that later.
Exactly.
Altair being the other one. Altair, a 40-year-old company. Leaders alongside ANSYS in HPC, high performance computing, AI capabilities, data science, physics, simulation capabilities. So it will boost Siemens initiatives in the digital twins, digital thread, and digital manufacturing segments within their digital industries software business, right? So really smart move. They will be competing against Synopsys in this exactly. Field, knowing that also Siemens is a very strong player in EDA, right? Which is electronic design, computer-aided design, right? EAD. So yeah, really smart move for Siemens. I personally created a LinkedIn post on that. I would say 2 or 3 months ago. So really impactful. Right, and it will represent, from a business perspective, it will represent an instant addition of over $600 million into its annual earnings. So really massive, really impactful acquisition. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a second company that really made some key announcements towards the end of last year is Microsoft. Like what we can see is like basically all the hyperscalers, like also AWS and Google, make significant investments in AI. But I think what sets Microsoft a bit apart is really their, I would say, smart moves toward tailoring the AI topic around industry-specific solutions, right? So they had like 2 key announcements on November 13th. The announcement of new adapted AI models for industry with industrial partners together. And then on the Microsoft Ignite 2024, the launch of Azure IoT Operations. So they're like 2 big moves in cooperation with their large ecosystem, right? making a big step for them into the industrial space. So maybe you can also reflect a little bit on that.
Yeah, sure, Tim. Yeah, well, Microsoft and the hyperscalers, right? But let's talk a little bit about the Microsoft and then the hyperscalers' role, not just since the inception of ChatGPT and the explosion of AI, but also before that, right? Yeah, well, Microsoft traditionally within the industrial space holds 20% market share, right, in terms of cloud hyperscalers presence in the industrial software space. But what is most important, that places them in second position behind AWS, which has something around 30 to 33%, depending on the sources that you take as a trusted source, right? The idea of Microsoft, of the really good thing that Microsoft is doing, is focusing on industry verticals. They are doing it really well, and they have a massive advantage over Google Cloud and AWS in what in the AI field, due to their partnership with OpenAI, right, and the investment in OpenAI. So they leverage all OpenAI services, not just to create large language models, but also industry-specific, more tailored small language models, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about industrial AI later today, I will dive deeper into that, right? The difference between a large language model, small language model, and all the trends that are, around industrial AI, right? But yeah, that was kind of, it gives Microsoft an edge, right, over the other hyperscalers in the industry. And from my perspective, we are going to see over the next couple of years an increase in Microsoft market share within the industrial technologies landscape, right, in terms of cloud services adoption.
I think especially around the Azure IoT operations launch, right? So I think what's like from the overall setup, what separates Microsoft basically from AWS or Google is really their huge partner ecosystems in terms of system integrators, right? So that really, if we look at the whole skill shortages that many, let's say, manufacturing companies are facing to get basically IT resources and capabilities. So I think with what Microsoft basically, at least my understanding, I'm doing here is also going a step towards standardizing, easification in terms of rollout. So this is also, I think, a huge step to really address AI not only for tech companies and making it available for tech companies, but also a big step for businesses in other industries like manufacturing to be able to implement either applications in their own business or developing together with partners own applications to build digital business. So I think it's a quite smart move, right?
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And two things that for sure it will help boost two other segments or sectors within industrial technologies. Azure IoT. When I am talking about Microsoft and cloud environments, of course, I'm talking about Microsoft Azure, right? Microsoft Azure with Azure IoT operations will help boost the growth of the industrial edge market because it's targeted to edge computing environments, and also, leveraging data platforms like, for instance, Microsoft Fabric, right? Integrating with Microsoft Fabric, which is a data modeling application platform. For sure, this set of tools comprised within the Azure IoT tools and services comprised within the Azure IoT operations package for sure will boost those two markets as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and maybe just one company to add. I think a little bit also from a German perspective, that is KUKA, right? The robotics and automation company. So KUKA, what they did in September 24, they launched or have set up an own digital business unit like KUKA Digital. So what they did is actually bundle their digital activities, taking it out from the robotic unit into a new unit, basically covering the companies or brands like Visual Components and Device Insight. And I think, a smart move to really separate it from the robotics, also making it a little bit company or technology independent. In that context, they also announced they are looking or open for further acquisitions in that field. So that really also shows like the commitment towards building digital business. And I think it's a good example how companies are able, like we also discussed in the beginning, and even if it's not like a really large scale Siemens, Rockwell, Honeywell, right, to establish digital business. And in this context, KUKA announced on November 7 or introduced like their own cloud platform, Mosaics, which is basically addressing system integrators and engineering customers with tools, data management. So they are going really further into that direction. So I think it's really, besides the look at the larger companies that we did, a good example of companies gradually transforming their businesses and showing already a little kind of maturity to establish really a separate business unit. Because what you often see is that companies are developing some pilot projects and so on, but the question is really how many companies really manage the step to scale and create a second source of revenue besides the hardware businesses. And if you, and that's why what I really find impressive about this step from KUKA, building a separate business unit also makes you visible, right? And being able to be measured against success and progress of digital business. So I think it's a great step forward, right?
Yeah, well, you mentioned from pilot projects to scale to production levels. That could be a whole episode if you want.
Right.
We can talk about that. It's not just on the robotic side, but also on the process manufacturing side as well. It's a massive problem that is likely being overcome by the plethora of solutions that are available in the market. But I don't want to deviate the subject. I forgot to say robotics when defining industrial technologies. I'm not personally a robotics specialist. We have a dedicated robotics program within the industrial practice area in Frost & Sullivan. But all what I can say about robotics is transitioning also from a hardware-centric company to software-centric companies, including, of course, AI capabilities, and focusing on collaborative robots, right? The cobots, the famous cobots, right? To help, to increase productivity, increase production levels, in collaboration with humans, right? But if I may, Tim, I would like to add 2 or 3 additional concepts on this company news, company highlights before jumping into the following subject, which I think are really important. The first one is even it's not a closed deal, but I don't know if you remember that last year, Schneider Electric, last year or it was 2023, I don't remember. I'm not that good with the dates, sorry about that, but I don't remember if it was 2023 or 2022, Schneider Electric acquiring Aviva, right? One of the top industrial automation vendors acquiring one of the top 2, probably or top 3 industrial automation software companies, traditional industrial automation software companies. Well, in 2023, we saw Emerson acquiring 55% of AspenTech. It was a move, which was, as soon as that happened, it was automatically compared with the Schneider Electric Aviva movement, right? Well, now, it was late last year, early this year, Emerson offered, I think it was something like $15 billion or so to acquire the remaining 45% stake of AspenTech, right? And if that is going to happen, automatically it will, get Emerson being one of the top 2 industrial automation / industrial software companies in terms of revenue and business volume, right? So that is something that I didn't want to skip mentioning.
And maybe just to add on that is like if you look in the history of Aspen, I mean, they themselves have been a huge acquirer of companies in the past, right? And if you think about this combination with Amazon, you can imagine what will happen in the future, right? So they might become a huge consolidator in the market in their specific fields.
Absolutely, and I was I had the opportunity to attend the Emerson Exchange Immerse Americas 2023 event that was held October last year in Anaheim, California, and they showcased how the two portfolios, right, in some particular markets where they have apparently, not conflicting, but Emerson has its own asset performance management portfolio. Aspen has its own asset performance management portfolio. Well, they showcase their plans to merge and consolidate and solidify those offerings, right, to become not just industrial automation APM, industrial software APM, but a comprehensive industrial automation / software APM offering, right? So that was really, really interesting to see. And last but not least, I would also like to mention, Microsoft. You said the incredible, the huge, one of the largest, if not the largest partner ecosystem. I wanted just to highlight, as we mentioned, Siemens and Microsoft, they collaborated, with the Siemens Industrial AI Copilot, right? With the release of the Siemens Industrial AI Copilot, generative AI Copilot, there you will see probably the largest industrial software vendor company in the world collaborating with the hyperscaler with most advanced AI capabilities nowadays, right? So, and a similar thing happened with Honeywell and Google Cloud. They collaborated, Honeywell, has signed an agreement with Google Cloud to include Google's Gemini AI's capabilities into their Honeywell Forge platform, right? So, in terms of AI, big hyperscalers, big industrial automation vendors, I would say those were the most important news or highlights in the second half of 2024.
Yeah, and I think it will be interesting to see how it continues because, like what you mentioned, there is a huge of, let's say, co-opetition, right? So on the one side, hyperscalers cooperating with software vendors, but what we see is in terms of the moves, they are themselves gradually moving up the stack, right? So becomes very interesting, I think.
Yeah, if you I love the word co-opetition, right? And it's not just from 2023 when with the industrial AI explosion, it goes back to the 2015, 2016, 2017 years, right? And all what I can say is that even though it's getting old, depending on the perspective, but if you look at the Purdue model, all that is level 3 and above, it's a complete co-opetition. Of course, we cannot say Microsoft, AWS, Google Cloud will have presence in the controls or in the field instrumentation side of the industrial automation space, but all which is operations management, optimization, business layer, right? MES, ERP, supply chain management, cloud infrastructure. Now this is a whole co-opetition space.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe coming to the next to our next section, right? So we were already touching several technologies, trends when we were talking about the companies. So from your perspective, looking back at 2024, what were your top 5, 6 key technology trends that drove the market in the last year?
That's a really good question. And again, and I have to apologize myself to you, Tim, and to the audience if I am missing a very important trend. Believe me, we are here covering the whole industrial technology space, industrial automation, industrial software, industrial hardware, robotics, additive manufacturing, industrial platforms. So it's virtually impossible to select top 5, top 6 without, missing any important one.
Yeah.
That's the disclaimer. Now, having said that, of course, we're going to talk about the top 5, top 6, but I would like to dive deeper into what they were for me, by far, the two main industrial technologies trends in 2024. And for some reasons, some very, very concrete reasons, they are going to be or continuing to be the two main, from my perspective, the two main industrial technologies trends in 2025, which are industrial AI and industrial data ops, right?
Okay.
Which is the acronym of industrial data operations, right? I don't know if you agree with this, but certainly, I would say not the whole audience, but at least I think a good percentage of the audience will have some coincidence with this, right? In the industrial AI, well, AI in industry really, well, AI in general was, it's not something new. It was born, I think it was in the 50s, early 50s, 60s, and it was taking small steps, throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. But what we have witnessed within since 2023 onwards, first of all with OpenAI and the inception of ChatGPT, and now the inception of dozens of hundreds of companies working on either leveraging OpenAI's capabilities or Llama capabilities or Gemini's capabilities, or developing their own large language models, we saw an explosion, right? And when I mean industrial AI, is basically the application of artificial intelligence into industrial contexts, right? And the key technologies that are developing this space, of course, are machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, of course, robotic process automation, and what it was for me the diva in 20 or the most important technology in terms of development and inception within the and disruption within the industrial technology space in 2024, that was generative AI. And generative AI allowing the development of copilots, right?
Yeah.
Every single largest or every single large and not so large company in the industrial space was investing in generative AI capabilities during 2024 in order to provide the end user community, right, the industry, some sort of copilot functionality, right? I would say my thoughts for 2025 later, but I don't see generative AI being the strong driver of industrial AI in 2025. But I'll save that for later, right?
Okay.
So in terms of, even though we will be conducting within Frost & Sullivan, we will be conducting industrial AI research, market research study, competitive landscape studies, awards, right? Best practice awards. We will be hosting webinars. We will be developing our own web platform on industrial AI research. We are managing or handling some preliminary numbers for you to know, and for the audience to know what we mean by industrial AI. In 2024, the revenue for the industrial AI market was somewhere around 16 and 17 billion dollars US dollars, and it is projected to be 140 billion dollars by 2030. That gives you a compound annual growth rate of 38% over the period 2024-2030. That number is the largest and fastest growing CAGR across the whole industrial technologies universe today. Right? These are not confirmed numbers. These are preliminary numbers that we are handling, but the final numbers will be around these numbers, right?
Okay.
So key growth factors for the industrial AI market, you can mention there is a huge demand for predictive maintenance, right? The integration of digital twins with AI capabilities within the industrial platforms are also another huge trend that, but at this particular case, I will mention it as an industrial AI driver, which is achieving ESG goals, sustainability. Sustainability is another huge trend, right? Like IT/OT integration. Those are like not technologies, but trends, right?
Right, exactly.
Which are IT/OT integration, sustainability, which are also driving the industrial AI growth, right? May I have a few additional minutes to talk about industrial AI before jumping into the next topic, Tim?
Sure. Sure.
Okay, yeah. How we see the industrial, when we talk about industrial AI, right? How we see the market currently, right? It's permanently evolving, but we are right now, in terms of technology implementation, we are clearly seeing this market divided into 4 main segments, right? Then you have subsegments, right? You have the companies that are actually focusing or currently focusing on developing copilot focused industries in AI, like for instance Siemens and Symphony AI. Then you have companies which are more algorithms or model development focused, like for instance Beyond Limit, SICK, Kelvin, ABB, right? Then you have a third segment here, which is those companies that are investing lots of resources on what is, for me, and I think there is a consensus in the industry-wide, there is a consensus of what is going to be the next big driver of industrial AI in 2025, which is agentic AI or AI agents. I saw this as an evolution of copilots, right? A copilot, you need to enter or to input, instructions, and they learn for those instructions, and the result, the outcome is, okay, here are the recommendations. The big difference with AI agents is that AI agents are capable of learning from the inputs that you provide, and after they learn, they are capable of making autonomous decisions. They are not saying, okay, these are the recommendations, you have to take action. No, 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 no. I, the agent, will take action from my learning, right? From my learning process. Yeah. There are companies right now like Cognite, like Composable, for instance, which are heavily investing in AI agents. And last but not least, we have what we call, and this is more focused on process industries, AI optimization, what I call, or what it's called, the closed loop AI optimization, which is basically using AI engines, right, powered by language models, either large language model or industry specific smaller language models, to create or perform closed loop optimization of control loops, right, in process industries. There you have companies, for instance, like Kelvin again, IntelliSea, Immobit, Canvas AI. So as you can see, industrial AI, for me, number one trend in 2024, number one trend in 2025 as well. A lot of companies, literally hundreds of companies in each of these segments that I mentioned, investing lots of resources, try to differentiate from the others, right? Because it's an extremely fragmented and highly competitive space. I don't know what are your thoughts on industrial AI, Tim, or if you agree with me that it's probably the number one trend in the industry.
I agree, and I think we both agree, and we discussed a couple of times, that especially AI will drive industrial transformation more probably than most of technologies did in the past, right? In terms of leapfrogging applications. Interestingly, we come later to that, is it doesn't fully reflect at the moment in M&A if we look at 2024. But I would expect so in 2025. So already also looking ahead a little bit. But maybe if we stick to 2025, what else do you see going forward in terms of trends and technologies that will shape the market in this year?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the other trend, again, which was top 2 in 2024, and it's we are about to release our top 10 industrial automation and software outlook report for 2025. You will see top 2. Same as 2024, industrial data ops, right? Industrial data ops is a market that is pretty well developed or pretty well known in America, perhaps in North America, I would say. Perhaps it's a little bit lagging in Europe and APAC, even though there are prominent players there. Cognite also, one of the pioneers of industrial data ops. What I mean by industrial data ops is basically a subset of the whole industrial data management, right? Practice, right? Again, it's kind of bringing into the industrial world IT related frameworks, IT related best practices, in this particular case, in order to manage data. And what I mean by manage data, not just to collect data, which was the original focus of Industry 4.0 with IIoT platforms, smart sensors. What I mean is, once you collect the data, you have to clean it, you have to contextualize it, you have to store it in a way that it allows you to get the most accurate actionable insights possible related not just to your industry, but also to your specific and particular use cases. And industrial data ops is a discipline that is, that relies on disciplines that has nothing to do with IT or OT, which is ontology, for instance, and the development of knowledge graph, which is basically tracing the relationships between every single asset, every single equipment, every single machinery in an industrial process. So when you are looking for some insights derived from, for instance, an equipment failure, you can have, through this knowledge graph, all the different pieces of equipment, all the units, all the plants that are going to suffer from some upset, from some malfunction, from the failure of a single pump, for instance, located in another process unit or in another section of the plant, right? So that is data ops, and the fundamental change that, same as industrial AI, is accelerating the digital transformation process, and it's bringing scary new capabilities, because you have a whole ethical topic around that, a whole governance topic around that, a whole security topic around that, the confidence, the hallucinations, but that's topic for another podcast maybe. But I don't want to dive deeper into that right now. But if industrial AI is accelerating the digital transformation or the digital maturity process of companies, what is the biggest impact of industrial data ops is the change in the industrial technology stack. Remember the Purdue model, the 5 or 4 levels of the Purdue model? Well, with industrial data ops, we are talking about a new Purdue model 2.0. I wrote a LinkedIn post about that a couple of weeks ago, right? Basically, it's not centered anymore in bringing data like kind of point to point data transmission between applications on an upwards direction, but it's centralizing in the middle of the tech stack. You have, of course, the physical layer, you have the connectivity layer. You must have that, right? But then you have a whole layer of data management, right? How to clean that data, how to contextualize that data, how to store that data, for then a whole layer of applications, AI-powered, AI-driven applications, start calculating or doing analytics to give you insights and visualization, right? So today, if I have to define the new industrial tech stack, I would say you have the connectivity layer, you have the physical layer, you have the connectivity or sensing layer, you have the data layer, you have the application layer, which is powered by AI, and then you have the visualization layer or user interface. And we cannot forget that you have across this vertical tech stack, you have data governance and OT, cybersecurity or industrial cybersecurity solutions, which are also AI driven right now, protecting the whole tech stack. So that's in a nutshell the biggest or the largest impact the industrial data ops is having and will have in the industry, right? And again, I have some preliminary numbers here. I don't want to throw a lot of numbers to the audience, but let me tell you that right behind industrial AI, industrial data ops is the second fastest growing sector or segment within the industrial technologies landscape today. So I don't know what you're thinking about that, but I have 3 or 4 additional trends before diving deeper into one of those.
Exactly.
But I'd like to know your thoughts on industrial data ops. Basically, now that you are based out of Germany and Europe, right?
Yeah.
How do you see the European market embracing data ops solutions?
I think like I think what you already said, I think the US is more advanced in that area, right? And also in the awareness, let's say, of the topic, right? I think you will have, especially on a technical level, people over here knowing that, but I'm not really sure whether this is really has the same type of prominence especially on a management level, right? If you talk about industrial technology, so I think it was good to talk about that.
Yeah, and let me tell you that just to finish, same as I give some insights. So I gave some insights on the competitive landscape, right? Which are the segments and the companies that are populating this space. I clearly see here two segments. One being data storage, and the other one being completely the data management side, right? Data orchestration, data contextualization, data modeling, data insights, right? On the first segment, you have players like Aviva, like Siemens, like Rockwell, for instance. Of course, I don't want to forget any of them, but GE, AspenTech, Influx Data, also time series database, because here, and again, this is a topic for another podcast. Take note. You have here the clash between data historians and time series databases. That's a whole discussion, right? So you have the Honeywells of the world, the Avivas of the world, the AspenTechs of the world, the Rockwells of the world on the historian side of the business, but then you have the TD engine companies, Canary, KX, Influx Data on the time series side of the business. So that's a really interesting competition. And then on the data management side, right, orchestration to insights, you have really interesting companies like Highbyte, like Limus Automation, like Symphony AI, of course, Cognite, right? And of course, you have the big ones, right? Aviva, AspenTech, Inductive Automation also. But this is for an M&A perspective, not just from a strategic partnership perspective, but for an M&A perspective, because 50% of the companies that I mentioned here are VC backed up or PE backed up companies, right? Funded by venture capitalist firms or private equity firms. So at some point, I would say some of them will go or will pursue an M&A or will pursue an IPO, right? So this is a really interesting space from my perspective for the M&A industry, right? Industrial data ops.
Just for me, I mean, as you already mentioned, I'm an M&A advisor, not that deep into each of the single technologies like you are, but to bring it on a let's say higher level. So what I understand, and therefore also the combination of the two topics like industrial AI and industrial data ops is really, it's two sides of a coin, right? Because one thing that is really always forgotten in terms of applying industrial AI is really the availability of structured data as a basis for AI. And I think as long as that topic isn't solved, the advancements of AI will not really be what is expected, right?
Exactly. And that's what I call the synergy between AI and industrial data ops. That was one of the topics of my keynote at the Industrial AI Summit in Symphony AI's event. You need to have a really strong, a really solid data management foundation to start developing applications tailored to specific use cases, right? With AI power capabilities, whether they use large language models with their advantages and disadvantages, small language models with their advantages and disadvantages, right? Retrieval augmented generation, state-of-the-art models. There are many different ways of setting up AI language models for industrial applications, right? And just for you to know, now that we are talking about companies, right? Symphony AI, for instance, which is really strong in both areas. They were the first ones that developed the first industrial specific large language model, in tandem with Microsoft. They have a strategic partnership. Again, Microsoft, we are naming Microsoft again in this podcast. And that model was trained with more than 1.2 trillion data points from actual processes, right? So this example helps you to see, or help the audience to see, the interaction, the cooperation between a hyperscaler, an industrial software company developing the first state-of-the-art industrial large language model. And that's what we will see for sure in the upcoming years, right? More and more partnerships between hyperscalers, industrial software companies, investing lots of resources on industrial AI, industrial data ops. I don't want to diminish, or I don't want to, lessen the importance of other trends. Robotics is a whole massive world, right? Projected, fast growth, of course, for the next 5 to 7 years. But in terms of technology, industrial AI, industrial data ops, where the will be for me the will continue to be the top two trends or technologies to follow, right? To watch.
Yeah, I think that's a good closing word for the section, right? And now finally coming, I think, to the deep dive that you are keen on presenting. Actually, it's like the augmented connected worker. I have to be honest. I also heard about it like the first time when we were talking, I think a couple of months back about it. I mean, I knew the word, but or the roughly the concept, but I think would be interesting going now into the topic, right?
Yeah, of course, Tim. Yeah, first of all, just to showcase not you but the audience, which are really quick, just naming the other trends that we are seeing very prominent in 2025, and then go back to the ACW space. Of course, augmented connected worker, I will dive deeper into the reasons of that. But of course, industrial cybersecurity, or OT cybersecurity, operations technology cybersecurity, data democratization. You have trends which are not technology trends, but are more like kind of sustainability, IT/OT conversions, interoperability. Well, data democratization belongs to that group of trends, and which is powered by low-code, no-code platforms, modularity, composability, right? Modularization, appification, what you have mentioned before, right? Also, digital twins and industrial metaverse. Cloud and edge computing will continue to be really relevant for the industry. Industrial metaverse, industrial DevOps, right? So all those are, trends, not that just we are covering in 2025 within Frost & Sullivan, but also are trends that we will see continuously developing in 2025 onwards, right? So just to not, sorry, I forgot, software-defined automation, a huge topic. Really important companies in Germany on that front as well, right? Virtual PLCs, incorporating or including GitHub practices, automated backups, for PLC programming, right? So sorry about that, Tim. I wanted to quickly mention, to touch upon those technologies as well, because they are really, really, really relevant for the industrial technology space.
Okay.
Okay.
So, finally, coming to our deep dive, augmented connected worker. It's your stage, Sebastian.
No, yeah, okay. Well, why augmented connected worker, right? That could be one of the why. If we are talking a lot about industrial AI, why if we are talking about industrial data ops a lot in this podcast, probably the audience may ask themselves, why augmented connected worker? What is it? What is augmented connected worker? Because I knew connected worker, but why augmented connected worker? Well, there is a purpose for this. First of all, reason being, it's a very attractive market for strategic partnerships and M&A, and it's not just an M&A activity, and it's not just very attractive. It happened in 2024. Really important M&A acquisition, M&A activity. I will dive deeper into that later. But the other big reason is that we covered this space in 2024, so we have plenty of information. Sorry to say this, with all due respect to the audience and to you, Tim, but Frost & Sullivan is the only market research firm in the market, in the market research industry, that has a really comprehensive quantitative analysis, quantitative numbers on the augmented connected worker market. Not just global markets, but also by industry, discrete, process, hybrid, and also by region: North America, Latin America, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and Asia, EMEA, Europe, Middle East and Africa, APAC, India. So we have a really, really comprehensive body of research, quantitative body of research on this field, which lets me to tell you the second reason. The first one being really interesting M&A activity. The second reason is it sits on the podium right behind industrial AI and industrial data ops as the third fastest growing segment that we are seeing in the whole industrial technologies market right now. So really important about that. One of the main reasons why I chose to talk about this topic today.
Yeah.
Okay, during the past years, we've seen the connected worker concept, right, arising. Being connected worker, all those tools that allow mainly frontline workers, field service workers, right, access to real-time information, increase collaborations between them, and share knowledge. That is the connected side of the market as we see this market. But
Yeah.
what we were able to see over the past 3 to 4 years since the pandemic is that traditional augmented reality companies are starting to populate the industrial space, right? First for frontline workers, but then providing AR solutions to the whole enterprise, right? So what we are seeing is a consolidation of the two markets, the connected worker market and the augmented worker market, which is basically tools that augment human skills. For instance, augmented reality, but not just that, also exoskeletons, for instance, if you want to go to the robotics fields, right? Exoskeleton that amplifies your body's capabilities, right? So basically, the augmented connected worker is the consolidation of the real-time access to information capabilities, the increasing collaboration capabilities, the knowledge sharing capabilities with the augmented human skills capabilities, right? That's the main sense of the augmented connected worker market. When we talk about ACW, let me use the acronym ACW. When we talk about ACW functionalities, right? We talk about knowledge and data management. We talk about work assistance and productivity. We talk about a seamless user experience. We talk about skills management, reporting and analytics capabilities, integrations with other vertical systems. One of the key things of the ACW platform is that every single vendor, or not every single vendor, but the many vendors and the direction where this market is headed is to transform the ACW platform, the ACW solution, into the single pane of glass for all the other vertical solutions, right? And this is where the vertical integration with with other vertical systems like ERP, MES, CMMS, APM, EAM systems. Sorry for all the acronyms, right? But the idea is to become, through that integrations with other vertical systems, to become the single pane of glass for every frontline worker, right? And also low code, no code capabilities. And we couldn't stop mentioning, AI. I would say more than 90% of the 50 companies that comprise the universe of augmented connected worker companies are investing heavily on AI capabilities, right?
Okay.
Which are the benefits? Sorry, go ahead.
No, please. First, go ahead. I'm keeping my question.
Okay, sure. No, really good, because we have a comprehensive 100-page report on this, so I can be, 2-3 hours talking about this, right? But I try to summarize the main facts, right? Why ACW? What is ACW in terms of market and in terms of technology? What are the benefits, right, of the ACW platforms? First of all, ensures compliance with standard templates for audits and inspections, enables remote specialist assistance, minimizing operational downtime, eases management of documentation, allowing for a paperless working environment and increasing worker efficiency by providing required material on demand. Also, hands-on training increases training and onboarding speeds, allowing the workforce to be ready sooner to operational tasks. And last but not least, increased data capture that can help generate new actionable insights, such as worker engagement or available skills in the current workforce, right? So those are some of the benefits of these solutions. And
Yeah.
really quick numbers. Remember I told you this sits behind industrial AI and industrial DataOps as the third fastest growing sector in the market. Okay, we are projecting 2024 to 2030 31.1% CAGR, compound annual growth rate, for the period, right? And that's because the main reasons for this is because most of the companies here are, as I told you, small firms under than 50 million in revenue, yearly revenue, which are VC backed up or PE backed up. They are looking for merge or being acquired by bigger firms, larger firms, and at some point within probably 3, 4 to 5 years, probably go to IPO, right? Became public. Again, this is a highly fragmented market. And although it is highly populated or pretty populated by smaller companies, you see also the presence of larger companies like PTC, for instance, which is a 2 billion company, very well known in the discrete manufacturing business, particularly on the AR side, right, with their Vuforia solution, right? So the growth that we are projecting, that we are seeing for this market is huge. And after we published the report, believe me, we got even though we have, at the time of the interviews, we have a lot of really good compliments from the CEOs of these companies. This report had not just the report, but also the competitive benchmark analysis had a really good reception in the industrial community. So it's a market, it's a sector, it's a segment where either investors or manufacturers or even industrial software vendors or business and financial services companies should start putting their eyes on, right?
Actually, when you said like that's approximately like 50 companies in the market, how has that been growing in the last couple of years? So do you see like there is kind of maturity of companies, or do you still see an ongoing process of companies entering the market actually?
No, that's a really good question, Tim. First of all, let me tell you this. When I said company universe, right? Company universe of 50 different companies, we have a criteria. In fact, there are more companies than that. But if you recall, a few minutes before, I mentioned the nine main technology functionalities that an ACW platform has. Our criteria of inclusion into the ACW company universe is that a company must comply at least 6 out of 9 of those functionalities, and they should be manufacturing focused, because today you have connected workers on an HR level, on an enterprise level. You have a connected worker on a, all these like Teams, for instance, all these collaboration, work environment, collaboration tools. Well, no, this is focused on manufacturing, right? So these companies started, trying to improve. It all started on the connected worker on one side, on the augmented worker on the other side. The connected worker started with small companies, really small companies, that I would say that 70-80% of the companies that comes from the connected worker side are pretty new companies. But you have more mature companies, for instance, like L2L, which are really well established in the market, right? And then on the other side, the augmented worker side of the business, you have companies that, for instance, as I told you, PTC, right, which has a long history, and 10 years ago, more or less, they started to acquire these companies like Vuforia, right? These businesses focus on augmented reality. So it was kind of, sort of, okay, you have the small companies here, and then you have larger companies on the other side. But at the end of the day, as the market is consolidating, now they are coexisting, right, and competing against each other, right? I don't know if that answers your question, Tim. But
answers, yeah. I think interesting market to watch, right?
Yeah, so, for sure. If I may, I would like to very quickly tell you 3 main acquisitions that happened between 2023 and 2024 in this market. Probably the largest ones, or the most notable ones. One is Poca, being a traditional ACW company, being acquired by IFS, the enterprise asset management solutions company, right? Then you have another really important acquisition, Swipe Guide. I think it was from Netherlands, being acquired by L2L, which was one of the most well-established companies in the connected worker space and with a longer history, right? And then you have this year, this is very recent news, Parsable being acquired by CAI Software, right?
Okay.
So the intention of CAI Software was which is an industrial software company, was to expand their industrial software capabilities. They had an ERP solution, an MES solution. Well, they wanted to include augmented worker and connected worker capabilities into their portfolio, so they chose to acquire Parsable, right? So those are the three most notable M&A activities over the past year or year and a half. And this is why I said this is very attractive market for M&A activity and also for PE firms and VC firms, looking to invest in high growth markets within the industrial automation
and
space.
It basically fits what you just with the last transaction also mentioned. A trend that we see overall in the market is the convergence between different segments, right? We see much more enterprise software companies acquiring industrial software companies. Within industrial software, we see PLM companies acquiring MES and so on. And I think this is a key trend to continue, right? To complement existing solutions with complementary software solutions. So,
and you have the digital thread there, right? The digital thread.
Exactly. One of the topics driving that trend, right? And I think we are already like in our last section, right? With the M&A. It's a smooth transition towards that, I think.
That's your domain expertise here,
I think as we have the first quarterly review, and we are in the transition from 2024 to 2025, I think it would be good to reflect a little bit on at least some highlights and an overall perspective of 2024, and then also looking forward to 2025. And what I did in preparation is, I was looking back on the last year, I was selecting, let's say, 5 transactions, major transactions in the market that I think reflect some underlying trends in the industry. And let's just go through it and discuss a little bit and comment it. I think one we already mentioned is in the first quarter in 2024. The acquisition of Ansys by Synopsys. I think one of starting the year with a really huge transaction, 35 billion in deal value. And as you mentioned, like in the EDA space, there is only already a limited number of players, and that is a further consolidation in the market. So I think underpinning the consolidation trend across several industrial software and industrial tech segments. You mentioned already Siemens also with the acquisition of Altair also, and Siemens with Mentor Graphics, a key player in that segment also. But it's a further step of consolidating the segment. One interesting or two interesting acquisitions is Nano Dimension acquiring Desktop Metal, Markforged in the additive manufacturing space in the last year, which I think also reflect the need for consolidation. With a disclaimer, whatever will happen in this year, as we have a change in the board of Nano Dimension, which is trying basically to revert the two transactions. I'm not really sure whether that will work, but actually, nevertheless, the two acquisitions in the last year, or the intention of it is really that many of the large players are suffering in terms of profitability, and there is a need consolidating the market. And so I think it's a typical transaction, especially for the more hardware-driven segments, that we saw consolidation in the last year, and we will, I think, also see more consolidation activities in this year. I don't know what you think about it.
Before diving into the Nano Dimension topic, let me tell you that I think it was yesterday or last week that the European Commission finally approved the ANSYS and Synopsys deal for the acquisition, right? Because there were some, it was not completely finished, but I think it was yesterday or last week that the European Commission approved the deal, right? Now what I mentioned, well, you are touching, you know what? Reflecting on additive manufacturing, right? I remember 2022 when I was developing the industrial automation and software outlook for that year, the report for that year. I remember placing additive 2022. I remember placing additive manufacturing as one of the top 10 trends in manufacturing, right? Not just industrial automation software, but also manufacturing. But the thing is that, a lot of movement during 2023 and a lot of bad news for the sector in 2024, right? None of the largest companies were profitable in 2024. And with that, I mean Stratasys, Desktop Metal, 3D System, even what I mentioned. And I don't know if you remember, there were, those are the top 3, top 4 companies in that market. They were trying to acquire each other. There were a lot of movement. And I think that reflected the confusion and the probably, which I expect that with some of these mergers and acquisitions happening in 2025, that finally that trend reverts, right? Because it was a hype of additive manufacturing 2020, especially during pandemic. Remember that, right? 2021, 2022, even 2023, I would say. 2024 was a bad year. Hopefully, with this acquisition, in fact, CEO of Nano-Dimension was fired in December. So it's a sign that companies are of course, they are pre-aware, of course, of their situation, and they are taking drastic actions, try to revert those trends and go back to the 2021, 2022, 2023 levels, right? So let's see what's going on, right? I think the Nano-Dimension's Desktop Metal acquisition has some due date or has a certain due date or deadline, right? I think it's end of January or end of March. I don't remember really well that. Sorry for that, but we all are expecting that to take place, right?
I would expect so too. But interesting to watch what's happening in this industry. I mean, also around the Formnext, the huge exhibition in Germany end of last year. There were some announcements on insolvency, and so there is a lot of things going on. And in terms of M&A, I think you can expect an interesting year in that industry.
And for sure, this space needs consolidation, Tim.
Definitely. Yeah, we agree. Another acquisition we already discussed, like Siemens acquiring Altair, right? That was basically towards the end of the year. A larger acquisition, $11 billion US, assuming it becomes closed, right? That basically represented a little bit also the hope of the whole M&A industry, right? That larger acquisitions are coming back, and it's also a promise towards 2025. So let's see, we come to that soon. But also showing like the combination and complementary acquisition of software solutions in the market, right? We already touched that there is a good fit in terms of technology between those two.
Absolutely. And I think at some point, sorry, Tim, I think at some point, this acquisition, I'm not saying this was completely in response of the Synopsys and ANSYS deal, but in the EDA industry, which Siemens is a leader, now that Synopsys will become a prominent player there, with even more prominent player with the acquisition of ANSYS, at some point, my personal view is that this acquisition has to do in part with, or in response, has to do in response to the Synopsys ANSYS movement, right? Siemens is acquiring topological optimization capabilities, simulation capabilities, analytic solutions, with RapidMiner, HyperWorks, LTR Inspire. So, and sorry, going back to Siemens, pay attention to this. If they already were the number one industrial software company worldwide, imagine with, the inclusion of the Altair business, another level.
Exactly. Yeah. And And finally, like from this acquisitions, I've chosen two acquisitions, like Avetta acquired by EQT, like that's a $3 billion acquisition. Avetta is the world's largest supply chain risk management platform. And then JAMA Software acquired by Francisco Partners, a $1.2 billion acquisitions on around product development. I think what is interesting about that is that in the US, you've seen in the last couple of years, especially in the US, an increasing interest of private equity firms acquiring industrial tech, industrial software companies. While my personal view is that in Europe and especially in Germany, we are lagging behind on that. So if you look in the private equity landscape here, you still have, let's say, more in the enterprise software area and in the system integration IT consulting area. And this is something I would expect, also already looking a little bit to the trends, also in Germany to adapt, because like what we already touched is that we have a quite significant base of fragmented landscape of industrial software companies, right? And actually creating out of this landscape stronger players, driving buy and build acquisitions, I think is something private equity companies are doing. And I would expect also gradually a focus on those segments also in Germany over the next couple of years. So therefore, I think these two acquisitions was also interesting to discuss actually.
To highlight, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and that's a trend that we are also seeing, right? Of course, the number of startups, and not just startups, that are being created, but also that are backed up by VC firms or PE firms, is way higher in the US and Europe, right? I think that's part also of the culture, right? Probably a more practical culture, idiosyncrasy in the US, more probably pragmatic in Europe, more conservative. But what I see in the future, or what we see in the industrial group in Frost & Sullivan, is that PE and VC firms and of course M&A activity will increase their levels, their activities over the next years.
Mm-hmm. And basically, if you take an overall look in 2024, my impression is like and it's like basically like every year, if you talk to people from the M&A industry, they all expect a better next year actually. So this is also I come to 2025, but I think also when we started 2024, that were the expectation of most player in the industry. That in terms of decreasing interest rates, private equity coming back into the business, but actually at the end it didn't really materialize, right? So we had I would say also from not only in the overall M&A market, but also in terms of industrial tech, quite a moderate year. Basically, I mean, in the US, at the end of the year, you saw already a recovery that is also expected to continue in 2025. I'm a little bit more conservative thinking about Germany. I don't expect too much before the election in Germany to happen. But as I said, it's overall more conservative year. This is also reflected in the transactions, right? So we saw consolidation as a key driver, especially in the hardware-driven segments, like also industrial automation. There is a lot of companies looking for succession because many of the companies have been founded in the 80s, 90s. So there's company succession, and in that context, consolidating the market. We basically have seen less cross-industry transactions in the last couple of years, and especially in the late 2000s, there were a lot of, let's say, manufacturing and industrial companies taking over industrial software companies. We saw those companies being more conservative in the market, so we have seen less of those cross-industry transactions. And also, compared to the past, there were no major new market entries, right? That a hardware-driven company entering the market via a huge acquisition. So I think AI across segments was a key topic. And if we look at the large automation players, for example, because they always setting a little bit like the trends. So you saw the topics of AI, simulation, energy management, asset management, supply chain. That were the key topics they were driving acquisitions for. If we look at different selective segments, I would say it was, industrial automation was mainly active in Europe. So we saw a majority of transactions here in Europe. As I said, very much driven by consolidation, but also driven by acquiring integration capabilities, automation software, robotics, comparably strong. Yeah, that really remained on a high level. What you already mentioned, we see in robotics also a gradual transformation, right, from hardware to software driven, especially when we think about no code, integration of machine vision, easification of robot teaching, and so on. So all these trends. So there is an increasing percentage of software in the acquisitions.
Also the development of operating systems for robotics, right?
Yeah,
There's a company,
exactly.
Ready Robotics, which developed the first operating system for robots. Yeah, it's a softwareization of the industry.
Exactly.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. And so therefore, I think software will become also in this industry much more important, because I would expect a shift, like also in the computer industry, like, right, the value creation in the future will be basically the software, not the hardware anymore, right? So it's important also for the big players to have an eye on that, and thinking about acquisitions of startups, of younger companies, where I think is a good environment for, because this is also a trend that we saw in 2024. There was a certain level of, for sure, of startup in investments, but also that was decreasing, and especially at the later stage, right? So the companies coming into the growth stage, we saw significant less investments in the last year than in the years before. So I think this is a good space also for larger industrials and industrial tech players to think about acquisitions in that area. So this is a key thing. And basically, if you look a little bit in the industrial software space, MAS limited activities in 2024. PLM is a segment where the large players in the years back, you saw a lot of consolidation activities, acquiring cloud native companies. In the meanwhile, I always call it beyond PLM. So they are acquiring more in terms of digital twin technology, digital thread, right, going downwards the value chain. So their acquisition focus changed a bit. Yeah. So there was not in the core PLM sector. We didn't see so much M&A activity. Supply chain, comparable stable, because this is one of the segments also where private equity showed increasing interest, but you also had a lot of consolidation activities, like, for example, activities of Blue Yonder also acquiring here in Germany. So there is also some within segment acquisitions happening. CAD, CAM, simulation, a key area, a growth area in terms of acquisitions, right? With a key focus on simulation and AI integration. So that were key drivers in that segment. And when we look at emerging software segments, how I call it, like industrial AI, analytics, as I said, there is a certain level, but if I look at the hype that was created in 2003 and 2024, when I looked at the year end and analyzed a little bit the market, I actually would have expected an even higher increase in terms of acquisitions, right? So 2024 was already a little bit moderate compared to 2023. But nevertheless, I would expect more activities also based on what we discussed before going forward in 2025, right?
Yeah, in industrial AI, the fact that it was so explosive, so booming, the growth that many companies started to appear. I think the market needs some sort of stability in terms of not new players. There are hundreds of new players in the industrial AI space, so we need some stability, right? First, from my perspective, not just on the number of companies, but also on there is a sort of being use case specific, getting rid of all this hallucination, which will give confidence to the end user to start using those tools, right? So for the M&A activity in the industrial AI space, what I would first expect would be, okay, some sort of stabilization in the number of companies offering these kind of solutions, right? And that they are able to demonstrate their value in that specific niche market, in that specific or domain specific use case, right? That's my point of view, right? Before, what I'm confident that this will happen, but we need to see that before the explosion of the M&A activity in the industrial AI space, right? At least from my perspective, from my viewpoint, right?
Exactly. And as I said, like it was let's say more conservative year from let's say from a German or European perspective. My fear is a little bit, if you look like who invested, is that Europe really losing a little bit more ground on the US and China, which is a pity, because I think Europe really with a manufacturing base should have, compared to consumer tech, right, a natural advantage in or at least that needs to be our hope, put it that way. But I think there needs to be more activity, and M&A is an accelerator, right? So companies also here need to be more progressive, also thinking about acquisitions in order to drive their solution capabilities in these areas. And I think that brings us already to the outlook. If you look at studies and reviews of 2024, outlooks 2025, I think most studies expect an increase of M&A activities again in 2025. I think with clarity in the US, how it's going forward, right? Whether you like it or not. So that's but it's a fact actually how there's clarity on how it will continue politically in the US. Germany, as I said, I mean, not clarity maybe, but that's maybe the wrong word. But but you have the fact actually with regard to the election. In Germany, you don't have, right? And like also like also like in France, how it's going to continue. It's I think very unstable at the moment. So let's see. So therefore, I think in the US, we can really expect increasing activities in M&A. Germany, as I said, I would expect maybe in the second part of the year, basically, an increase. So I'm a little bit moderate with my expectations, but nevertheless, so I anyway don't look too much in M&A on global trends or of M&A activity, because I think you need to look at the underlying factors that are driving M&A in the specific sectors, and I think there is definitely trends that will drive M&A in industrial tech, and I think the strong players will take advantage of the market and the opportunities. So for me, there is a couple of trends when I look in 2025. One is really like I'm always combining like the automation players and also the manufacturing, and also the mid-sized manufacturing players. I think there's really a portfolio transformation that will continue, right? So if you look in the past, like how the big automation players changed their portfolios from hardware to software, I think that is similar what will happen, I think, in the manufacturing industry. So if companies look how they will make money in the future, I think that will start with several carve-out activities, like that companies realizing not all of their businesses is relevant for the future. So I would really expect from the hardware side further sell-side activities happening, also to finance buy-side activities in the software area. So I think there is a combination to look at that. If you look at global trade and geopolitics, right? So I would expect, because that was also on a comparably lower level in the last year, increasing cross-border transactions, especially between Europe and the US. So if you look at all the tariff discussions and trade discussions, I would expect, especially from Europe, also increasing activities of acquisitions in the US to also have their, let's say, a second home base in the US. So this is something I would expect to drive also M&A in the next year. And I think consolidation is a topic that will remain, also especially in the hardware-driven segments. I think IT-OT convergence will drive, let's say, cross-segment activities from automation and software, right? Because I think the boundaries are really blurring between those. And what I also see is like within industrial software, enterprise software, also these combinations will drive activity in the next year. So my reflection on the market going forward is really less on a global M&A activity. I think it's difficult to predict whether it will rise or how much it will rise, but I think there are definitely several drivers in the market that will drive the activity, and the strong players in the market will take action, and smaller players will have to think about, can we do it alone? Do we have to find a strategic partner going forward, right? So, and I think one topic I forgot, but because we discussed it already, I think AI basically will remain a key player. And this is also, I think, driving the thoughts of smaller players, because I mean, AI is not a separate topic, right? It's also basically infusing existing software solutions in the MES, in the PLM space, and I think many companies will have to think about acquisitions to include those technologies in their offerings. And I think for smaller players, it will become more and more difficult to do also like cloud transition, AI transition, to drive that into their portfolio. So I think there will be also more sell-side activity again in the industrial software space from the smaller companies looking to be acquired by larger companies or investors. So basically that's my roundup of the last year and going forward. So what do you think? What is your expectation?
No, well, Tim, first of all, I couldn't agree more, even though I'm not an M&A expert, right? But a couple of I'd like to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned, right? You talked about perhaps not focusing on global M&A, right? M&A activity, as far as I know, is extremely influenced by regional, right? Local or regional local or regional topics, right? Even it's their own geopolitical topics, it's their own economy, right? It's not the same comparing APAC, for instance, which is emerging market, fast-growing market, probably with Europe or even with the US. Talking about, which are the geographic regions that increased the most in 2024 in terms of industrial technologies is APAC, North America, and then Europe. We forgot to discuss that before, but you gave me a good reason to delve into it. And I think the same, right? First of all, not focusing on global, but regional topics or issues, right? Geopolitical, supply chain, of course, all these nearshoring, reshoring, onshoring tendencies, trends that there are. Also, there is well, you mentioned something that is really, really important, and I think this is happening across the whole industrial technologies landscape, which is software is going to drive value creation and not hardware anymore. Well, there are trends like software-defined automation, right? Decoupling hardware from software, or open automation, right? Which is the possibility to use different, to avoid the vendor locking and using different vendors with different vendor technologies within the same set of hardware, right? So I would say that software, industrial software, that is why software driving value creation is one aspect on why I see M&A activity on that side, more on the hardware side. I thought you said the contrary. I don't know. I don't remember really well, but from my perspective, I see more M&A activity on the software side of the industrial business rather than on the hardware side, right? Because of the value creation that you mentioned. So
yeah, exactly. Just what I was saying is that last year acquisitions were rather conservative, right? So we saw a comeback of scale acquisitions, also in manufacturing, cost-driven acquisitions. because of the sectors struggling, right? And but going forward, I would really expect companies reshaping their portfolios, as I said. So there will be carve-out activities of getting rid of part of their hardware-driven businesses and acquiring software, because I think for machinery companies, most industrial automation players, acquisitions are the only way. Like always, if we talk about establishing a strong business, right? I'm not talking about some small projects saying, okay, we also do digitization, but if you want to have a second strong business line next to your hardware business, then I think acquisitions at a certain point of time
in the case of OEMs, for instance, they are used to sell machinery. Basically, that was their main business model for decades. Well, now they are, shifting that focus towards a service-oriented business model, right? And for that, to incorporate those capabilities and still creating value and differentiating from their competitors, for sure, they would want to explore some sort of acquisition of small technology companies that allows them to include those remote monitoring capabilities, remote assistance capabilities into their core offerings. That in the case of the OEMs and machinery sector, right? And you mentioned exactly. AI. Well, I personally would expect that AI would be, from my perspective, once the AI market landscape, industrial AI market landscape is stabilized in terms of company creation activity and really demonstrating that their solutions are really reliable, right? And they don't hallucinate, and they are capable of solving specific use cases, right? Tailored to the manufacturers or the end user needs. When that time comes, I think the M&A activity on the AI side will boost, and I would expect not the big industrial automation companies, the big industrial automation vendors, the traditional ones, not just signing partnership agreements with the hyperscalers, but mostly acquire smaller AI companies, right? So that's at least, without being an M&A specialist like you, Tim, those are the trends within the industrial technology space that I see for the M&A sector over the next years, right? Over the next few years.
I think is especially like strategic M&A is reflecting the industry trends. So right, that's what I was also saying. So
and we mustn't forget that it's one of the core growth processes for every single industry, for every single company, right? The mergers and acquisition. So it's something that it's going to, hopefully Europe can reach the levels of activity in the US, right? That's what we are all expecting, right?
Yeah. So I think that's a good closing word, right?
Yeah.
So
really good way of ending this.
Extended version today. But I think was really interesting. Our first quarterly review. Looking forward to more in the next couple of quarters. I think this time actually we reflected for sure over the last year. Looking forward, I think the next ones are, I think, easier to digest also for the listeners, right?
Exactly.
When we look on the quarterly. But I think it was very interesting, and I really enjoyed it, having like the review of the year, looking out to the next year, and I think it was really a very valuable discussion going into the players' trends in that market, because I think for each company and I think what we discussed, right, looking at different types of players entering the market, having the hyperscalers, having software companies, having hardware companies, it's a really complex market. And I think therefore the discussion is quite valuable. I think also for others to dive in, to understand where's my position in the market and so on, what are others doing. And this is really what I'm looking forward to doing in the next couple of quarters together with you.
Absolutely, Tim. And don't forget systems integrators. That's another topic that we should cover during the year, right? The OT, traditional OT system integrators, and also the IT system integrator like the Capgemini, Cognizant, Entity Data. So that's a huge topic. Talking about, how all these companies are mixing. Well, in the system integrators world, it's happening the same. This was an amazing session.
We have already a first topic for our next quarterly.
Awesome. Systems integrator, the system integrator sector. Now, really, really interesting. Really interesting.
Exactly.
And that's when you talk about IT/OT convergence, that's a no-brainer to discuss.
Yeah.
So
Sebastian,
thanks a lot, Tim, for this opportunity. For me, it's
really enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure, having the possibility to share the virtual stage with you, discussing about what we think are our passions, which are industrial technologies, in your case, mergers and acquisitions, of course. This is an absolutely amazing opportunity. Thank you for that. And of course, I look forward for our quarterly episodes on the industrial technologies market, right? How they evolve, what a close outlook on the past quarter, what to expect on the on the current quarter, sorry. So amazing series. So looking forward to it. And thank you so much, Tim, for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you very much for participating and joining me here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you to the audience also.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. And
for staying tuned.
Staying tuned. 2 hours. Whoa.
yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tim.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Transforming industries.